Everyone assumed Ricky Nelson was destitute when he perished in 1985 aircraft tragedy. It cost him $1 million to divorce. He owed everyone. Upon his death, his children would inherit debt. A concealed will was uncovered by his brother. The attorneys discovered something surprising. Record companies stole from him for years. His next move made all 4 kids millionaires. The judge couldn't comprehend the enormous payments. However, one son received nothing. Drop your head. Ricky Nelson was born May 8, 1940 in Teaneck, New Jersey. He was different from other youngsters. His father, Ozzie Nelson, led a large band. His mother, Harriet Hilliard, was famous in cinema. Since the beginning, his life has been public. His family's radio program, Ozzie and Harriet, was famous across America while he was in diapers. Ricky was raised in music studios and sound stages. Family lunches might become customary. Sometimes trips were theatrical. Living under a spotlight made even the most mundane tasks seem orchestrated. Ricky launched the radio show with his brother David in 1949 at age 8. Most boys his age traded baseball cards or rode bikes. But Ricky memorized lines and cashed checks. Before turning 10, a star rose. By age 10, he was famous for his natural speech, but fame cost him. Nobody celebrates birthdays or plays sports with pals. Only lights, cameras, and duty. Ricky hadn't a childhood. A room was his playroom. Much of his childhood was sacrificed for the family name. The family came to Los Angeles in 1941 and lived in a charming green and white Cape Cod house at 1822 Camino Palmero. The house was more than a dwelling. It became American TV's face. It became one of pop culture's most iconic residences after appearing in several show sequences. Some admirers drove by to look. There was business inside those walls. There scripts were written. Practices took held in the living room. The kids helped Ozzie run the business smoothly. Their TV and movie roles reflected their real lives. The show was popular because it combined fantasy and reality. But Ricky struggled. What was real and what was fake? Ricky had problems breathing too. It wasn't simply occasional coughing bouts. It kept him home from school and friends. Just going across the room exhausted him. Ricky read indoors while the kids played, or simply singing. He thought and quieted. He watched more than spoke. He eventually used his quietness to enchant. He stood out on film for his calm power. But underneath that was a lonely youngster who longed to breathe and feel normal. The radio program began in 1944 with Ozzie and Harriet hiring actors to represent their sons. David and Ricky didn't like that and pushed to play themselves. They starred as themselves by 1949, Previously Undone. Despite its odd blend of family and pleasure, it worked. Ratings rose and everyone loved the Nelsons. The job wasn't simply for Ricky. Every day he lived it. Fans adored reading about his life. Once it got famous, the first U.S. reality family. It became a genre decades ago. 1957 arrived. Ricky sung Fats Domino's I'm Walkin' on his family's TV show at 17. I was thrilled. Girls Across swooned. The track sold over 1 million times. He embodied adolescent cool overnight. But Ricky's life was already maturing off screen. Events, females, and fast vehicles. Ricky explored all fame's doors. Behind the scenes he was harsh and crazy, yet pleasant in interviews. His hair was slicked back, and his sideburns grew. Little rebellions that angered his parents because they desired control. Bebop Baby, his debut Imperial Records single, was a hit late that year. Before its retail release, it had 750,000 pre-orders. It immediately sold over 1 million copies and reached the top 5 on pop and rock and B charts. Ricky was no longer a young hero. He was important. His debut album, Ricky, was successful. In a flash, being young and attractive equaled money. Ricky proved that record corporations could profit from every guitar-playing youngster. However, Ricky had serious relationships that would have stunned his followers. There was one with Marianne Gaba, his TV lover. It was hot off screen. Ricky later promised, "Neck for Hours" was a certain way to stir trouble in the 1950s. Better yet, he gave her a gold ring that read, "To Marianne, love Rick." She thought they were serious. He didn't. Before creating songs with Lori Collins, Ricky was dating other women. People felt he was great. Ricky was a youth living fast, but few knew. Much of this worried his parents. Ozzie and Harriet were more than parents. Things were manufactured, handled, and kept out. Ricky's various ladies bothered them. They believed love would distract him. Most of all, Ozzie was strict. Ricky earned $500 a week by 13 or 14, but his dad kept it. It didn't pay well for Ricky. His parents didn't want him spoiled. He ruled his personal life too. No marriage rumors persisted. Serious partnerships were frowned upon. Ricky fought because he was used to fame and pressure. Late night parties and hidden loves. He was still the beloved TV family's face. He was slipping from their grip behind the scenes. Young Ricky Nelson's debut record reached #1 at 17. The October 1957 Ricky record was just that. It topped the Billboard LP chart for 2 weeks after rising swiftly. He was the youngest artist to achieve so. Teens sang catchy tunes, but this was more. Due to the adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, one of the most viewed U.S. series, Ricky was a TV sensation. Many people saw him sing and act weekly. Elvis and other stars dominated the radio, but Ricky ran the living room and broadcasts. Before the album came out, peppy tunes, including Have I Told You Lately, That I Love You, were topping the charts. His design, not happenstance, made him successful. That strategy was designed by his father, Ozzie Nelson. Ozzie, their family's TV show manager, recognized an opportunity no one else did. Ricky closed each concert with a new song. It was adorable and smart. It reached 10 million viewers every week. Media coverage was high. Ricky's I'm Walkin' reached #4 on the charts. After performing on the show in April 1957, the B-side, A Teenager's Romance, improved and reached #2. That effect was unprecedented. Ozzie controlled Ricky's appearance and made sure his songs were key in the plot. He wouldn't let him on E.T. since it was so terrible. Why share when they can shine alone? Poor Little Fool followed. It was the first song to top Billboard's new Hot 100 list in August 1958. It would have been history, but there's more. 15-year-old Sharon Sheeley penned the song. Ricky noted it. Not wanted. It was a smash on radio, despite not being intended. Imperial Records released it against Ricky's objections. It became #1 and stayed there for 2 weeks. It reached country and R&B charts. That moment cemented Ricky's music career. His heirs profit from it. People have covered the song several times. However, no one else can top the Hot 100. That title belongs to Ricky forever. Ricky had 20 top 40 hits from 1957 to 1962. Elvis was the only one with more. He sold over 1 million copies of his debut Imperial Records hit. It was pre-ordered 750,000 times before release. His deal was ridiculous too. He will receive $50,000 a year for 5 years and control his songs and record art, which was never possible for a youngster. Money from those hits continued flowing in. TV continued playing his music. Worldwide Ricky Nelson International Fan Club organizations were 9,000 by 1960. Ricky was affluent and everywhere. Showed acting ability in 1959. In Rio Bravo, he appeared with John Wayne and Dean Martin. Most promising newcomer Golden Globe nomination for Colorado Ryan. His playing was lauded, but something else stood out. He spent. Ricky enjoyed himself. Luxury automobiles, VIP clubs, and custom outfits. He partied with Hollywood's elite. He reportedly made $5,000 every month, approximately $50,000 now. That helped his business and proved he valued the high life. Fame made him rich and altered him. Interestingly, Sam Cooke rejected Travel and Man in 1961. It didn't suit him. Ricky was gutsy and it worked. The successful single sold over 1 million copies in April. Also successful was Hello Mary Lou, the B-side. 2 enormous successes in one song. Ricky heard tunes others didn't. One of the final great triumphs before everything changed. He grew irritated behind. Older musicians on his recordings didn't enjoy rock and roll. Some players didn't play his way. Someone said, "Kid, this isn't music." Ricky dismissed them. He formed his own band with young musicians that liked his sound. He was in command, but salary, gear, and travel were expensive. James Burton joined the band. Burton later became a celebrity. Not simply sound. Respect was involved. Ricky hated becoming a doll, but nothing could stop it. A Beatles tsunami hit America in 1964. Everything changed in February when they appeared on Ed Sullivan. They topped the Billboard list 5 times by April. Elvis struggled. So did everyone else. Ricky was similar. His song For You nearly cracked the top 40 that year. It was losing its charm. The British invasion altered more than music. It altered the regulations. Chris Harmon, 16, and Rick Nelson met on Christmas Day 1961. Harmon was 16 and a Hollywood star. His age was 21. She was born to football star Tom Harmon and actress Elise Knox. Her brother Mark Harmon starred on TV. They would undoubtedly be a wonderful Hollywood couple. Popular, gorgeous, and raised publicly. However, that dream became a protracted nightmare. Rick was stressed from the outset. Ozzie, his father, managed his money. Growing raised in a wealthy family made Chris crave a nice life. Rick attempted to keep up, but money kept leaving. He spent all his money on mansions, vehicles, beautiful clothes, and vacations every year. Rick was destitute by the late 1970s. The fairy tale ended. Their April 20th, 1963 wedding wasn't romantic. Gun wedding. Chris was pregnant, therefore her Catholic parents wanted a food-free wedding. Rick, who wasn't Catholic, had to swear to teach their kids the faith. Not his choice. It was ordered. To maintain peace, he attended Catholic school and did what everyone else did. The wedding appeared to be a party, but it was really about control and putting up a show. That worry never accumulated. Strange that Rick's parents liked Chris. They rejected all his dates except her. They loved connecting Nelson and Harmon families. Chris, classy, well-connected, and Hollywood royalty, fit the bill. They were initially a good fit, but that changed rapidly. While Rick had always followed his dad's money standards, his wife suddenly wanted everything money could buy. They planned nothing, just wasted. When Rick's job tanked in the mid-1970s, the expenses continued. Chris wanted him home more. Rick had to keep touring. His emotions and finances were strained. The once admired marriage ended with a $1 million court cost. Chris joined Rick on Ozzie and Harriet's escapades following their marriage. She earned money portraying herself on the show. We spent more with 2 paychecks. Their saving skills were lacking. Agents, assistants, and attorneys surrounded them. But no one stopped the bleeding. Rick used to obey his father's money guidelines, but now he spent it all to keep up with his busy life. Chris withdrew because he felt trapped in a phony TV world and a failing marriage. They were too far gone then. Hollywood ambition transformed into slow-motion stock market disaster. Rick and Chris made love and kisses in 1965. My father ran it. 2 youths flee and struggle with the groom's parents. Funny tale, sad fact. Their real-life issues impacted their art. Some reviews liked the casting. Few realized how true the narrative was. Acted like a high schooler at 25. Chris's labor was underappreciated. Their marriage was struggling behind the scenes. Ozzie utilized the film to address personal issues, emphasizing anguish rather than humor. It was unusual, unpleasant, and a sign. In 1969, Rick desperately wanted to leave the past. He reinvented himself by forming the Stone Canyon Band, which fused country and rock before it was popular. Due of his actions, Randy Meisner joined the Eagles. The band was promising but not timely. Rick plays tiny clubs for little money today, instead of huge venues, as the headline performer. Meisner resigned because he wasn't generating money and felt forced. Though innovative, Rick sings Nelson and In Concert sold poorly. Rick sought artistic independence when his money and popularity disappeared. It didn't matter how he proved his guitar skills. It almost did. His breaking moment came. October 15, 1971. MSG is a rock concert. Rick was booed instead than loved. He wanted to try a different sound by removing Ricky's Y. He played Honky Tonk Ladies. The audience preferred vintage hits. Not all said it was the music. Police actions in the crowd were blamed. But Rick believed the message was obvious. They didn't like his new self. He felt awful about himself after leaving the stage and watched the concert from behind the scenes. He agreed to play the old tunes again. Too late, the crowd cheered. Something shattered him that night. But that disaster yielded a surprise. In 1972, Rick penned Garden Party. About them. It existed. It was true. The chorus told it all. You can't please everyone, so make yourself happy. That song moved me. It reached gold and number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100. Rick briefly returned.
It was his first top 10 hit in over a decade. Fans who didn't like him previously started singing, but it didn't last. Palace Guard and subsequent songs failed. His record label didn't know what to do with him. By 1974, Windfall-like albums failed. He played at amusement parks and obtained modest TV roles, but MCA dumped him. Garden Party was a win-bye. He was a pop star in America. The mid-1970s saw him lose control of his life. His marriage to Chris Nelson appeared to be stable, but it wasn't. Rick traveled constantly to keep up with their lavish lifestyle. Private schools, expensive residences, and high expenses. He went further away as he worked.
Chris felt excluded. Richard felt smothered. Their disputes developed into battles, turning the house they worked so hard on into a battlefield. Rick returned home to a cozy house in 1977 after another long trip, but he was shut out. Chris relocated everything into a rented house. She and 2 LA Rams dancers were present when he arrived. Surprised and humiliated, that moment proved it. You couldn't return. Christine blamed Rick's drug addiction and stated she did it to protect the kids. Rick's crew lied, but it was too late. Their marriage was irreparable. In 1980, they tried again. Richard acquired Errol Flynn's Mulholland Drive home for $750,000. His aim was to start there. Chris advised him to quit singing and become an actress. It was impossible for Rick. Because of his debt, he had to travel to survive. The home didn't help. It increased tension. Ghosts were reported to haunt it. The family lost money when lights flickered and sounds produced. My ideal house became a nightmare. The breakup was horrible. Chris stated Rick abused drugs and was a bad dad. She said that staying would kill their children. Rick responded that she was drinking and leaving the kids with staff. 5 years passed before the legal case ended. It cost almost $1 million for attorneys. No one could control their emotions. Children were in the center and saw their parents fight. It ended in 1982. The breakup ended. Rick paid child support monthly for 4 months. He and his ex-wife shared 4 children, ages 8 to 19. He almost ran out of money. He was exhausted from court. He traveled nightly to make ends meet. Everything was always on my mind. His health declined. He felt sad, and his happiness appeared gone forever. Rick desperately wanted to return by 1985, but there was a catch. He feared flying. He bought an old jet for $118,000 to avoid the tour bus. The 1944 Douglas DC-3 was it. Jerry Lee Lewis owned it before. Rick hoped to save money and be alone. However, the plane was messy. Engines malfunctioned. Lots of pieces broke. The band had to push it off the track many times. That aircraft frightened everyone. Bobby Neal's wife advised him not to travel. Double emergency landings had been made by bassist Patrick Woodward. Piano player Andy Chapin also declined. But Rick ignored all the warnings. He needed cash. He couldn't stop shows. He lost a golden opportunity to get agricultural labor in September when his engine went down. Another mechanical issue delayed the plane for hours on December 31, 1985. Still, Rick got it. They were flying to Dallas for a New Year's Eve concert. Smoke invaded a Texas cabin. It was too thick to view the instruments. To fly blind, lead pilot Brad Rank had to thrust his head out the side window. Around 5:14 p.m., the jet crashed in a field 2 miles from a DeKalb landing strip. People who witnessed it claimed it was spouting black smoke and soaring about before hitting trees and catching fire. The rubble covered 150 yards. The only survivors were the pilots who escaped via the windows. Rick and 7 others killed in the fire. But Rick was just 45. His lover Helen Blair and 5 band and crew members were with him. Donald Clark Russell plays sound. Andy Chapin piano. Rick Infield drums. Bobby Neal guitar, and Patrick Woodward bass. Body identification tests were needed after the horrific collision. The music industry gasped. Nelson was a teen superstar. Just hours before 1986, he died. Even more difficult was what followed. The money situation was bad for Rick. Christine Harmon was his ex-wife. Tracy, Gunnar, Matthew, and Sam were their children. Helen Blair was his intended, but he didn't include her in his will.
Also present were his mother and ex-wife. Unfortunately, Rick's expenditures, legal expenses, and the cost of preserving the DC-3 that killed him left the estate $1 million in debt. Rick was supposed to have died without a will. His ex-wife moved in to take over the land after finding none. Rick's brother David Nelson presented a 4-month-old will. That changed everything. Rick's will only mentioned his 4 children as heirs and nominated David as executor. However, they owed a lot, so it was unclear what they would leave. Kristen wasn't kidding. She sought Rick's life insurance despite their divorce. She challenged David's executorship in court. The judicial case soured swiftly. Years-old charges of drug usage, terrible parenting, and irresponsible spending surfaced. The divide alone cost almost $1 million. Lawyers were traversing what was left. The following shock was harsher. Rick added a kid. Rick had a brief affair with Georgianne Crew in 1980, which produced him. His name was Eric Jude Crew. Rick denied being the father, but a 1981 court-ordered blood test proved it. He stopped paying $400 a month in child support when a judge ordered him to. Rick left Eric out of his will since the child's fatherhood was disputed. After Rick died, Georgianne battled for her son's half of the inheritance, but the court upheld the will. Eric got none. Meanwhile, Helen Blair's parents sued for wrongful death. They claimed compensation for the plane tragedy caused by poor maintenance. The other guests' families enjoyed it too. More cases followed. Creditors claimed. Georgianne championed Eric's cause. Kristen fought for insurance money. Far too many people were snatching crumbs, making the home look like a sinking ship. Nobody saw Rick's actual riches wasn't money. In his song, nobody understood his backstock and royalties, especially from streaming, were worth a lot of money. The issue was record labels stealing it. The Nelsons sued Capitol Records for $100, $250 million, in 2011. Capitol was sued for not reporting unequal profits it argued couldn't be connected to artists and not paying Rick's estate enough for digital sales. Capitol was charging digital files for CD and vinyl breakage costs, which made no sense. Family stated it was a fraud. Millions were stolen using outdated accounting systems. Also withheld report details. The result? The amount owing to his children was unknown. Case ended in 2014. Capitol paid an undisclosed amount and promised transparency. The attorneys declared it a huge victory. Not the end though. They challenged Sony Music 2020. Streaming abroad was the issue this time. People alleged Sony offices charged each other and lowered compensation by charging intercompany costs. The result? Up to 68% of revenues were gone before Rick's estate appreciated. The town was huge, £12.7 million, plus 36% extra streaming revenues. Finally, Rick's children received money from his bequest.